Oh no, you're bleeding.
Oh, you are.
Oh god, this happens every time I get an erection.
These facts should be very pleasing. Try to enjoy each equally.
Here is all the small details that you might have missed in Severance Season 2, Episode 6. The episode starts with Reghabi and Mark, and if you can notice this, Reghabi is sitting far away from the window. We know that she's been in a hiding for a very long time. She knows exactly how Lumon operates, and this is why she's so experienced and knows exactly where to sit.
We're making progress. It's not just waking up on a table, it's human interaction.
Now, another interesting thing about Reghabi is that she's completely excited about Mark remembering social interactions, contrary to him just remembering waking up on a table, because social memory is way more complicated than episodic memory. Waking up somewhere is an episodic memory that stores personal experience tied to specific times and places. When you recall where you woke up or what you did, your brain is retrieving a detailed autobiographical memory that includes contextual information like time, place, and surroundings. Now, memories of social interactions are more complex because they involve both episodic memory and emotional memory. When you recall a conversation or an interaction with someone, you not only remember what happened, but also how you felt and the social context. So if in episodic memory your hippocampus and prefrontal cortex are engaged in social emotional memory, in addition to that, your amygdala and mirror neuron are also engaged in the whole brain process. Mirror neuron, by the way, is the same neuron that fires when you experience something and then you see somebody else experiencing the same thing. Like, for example, we guys, when we see somebody gets kicked in the nuts, we all have the same reaction when we see something like this. And if you think I'm just pulling things out of my ass and nobody at the show is actually thinking about the prefrontal cortex, here you go, you have a podcast with BenStiller and Adam Scott, and if you're gonna listen to Ben here in this segment, you're gonna pretty much understand that they are talking about this very often.
It's been fun. I've enjoyed it very much. It's been interesting. You know, these episodes are much more firmly in my frontal cortex or whatever part of my brain that would remember things. So it's kind of like dipping into the more recent past. And
much different experience than going through season 1, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It's like if somebody is chewing on my ear for a long time on the same topic, this is exactly how I'm gonna sound about this. The prefrontal cortex, I've heard this already 100 times. And it's completely logical that in the show that delves into the human mind and tries to understand how human psyche works, how somebody has to deal with the trauma of loss of a beloved one, it's pretty logical that they will dive into psychology and into neuroscience when the whole premise of the TV show is separating the human mind into two different personalities. Duh.
You don't say!
Sorry, I had to switch to my Audi because this is the moment when I have to be a little bit emotional because we finally get a confirmation that Reghabi does give a shit. Like in the previous episode, it felt like she's a little bit out there. She really doesn't give a crap about what's gonna happen to people that she's reintegrating. She was really distant. She didn't have any emotions. And in the first scene of this episode, we can clearly see that she's almost crying there with Mark. She feels his pain, and obviously, come on guys, it's impossible to think that somebody will go against a huge corporation like Lumon by themselves just because of some pragmatic reasons. She obviously has something that pushing her towards and forward in order to defeat this company, and she's hiding something. I'm not denying that, she's obviously hiding something, but simultaneously I think she's one of the good guys.
Bargaining.
Well, Mark is also talking about bargaining, which is obviously one of the stages of grief. We have the denial, the defense mechanism, where individuals refuse to accept the reality of loss. Then we have the anger, we starting to fight and be angry, and it can be towards oneself, it can be towards the others, it can be towards the situation. And we have the bargaining, when we start to try to bargain with the fate, with God, with somebody else, and we're trying to make some kind of a deal. And then there is depression, a period of deep sadness and reflection as the reality of the loss becomes undeniable. Now this is something we definitely have seen Mark struggling with for the previous episodes in the beginning of this show. And there of course there's acceptance when you finally are ready to move on to the next stage, you accept the terms of loss and you want to find something else for yourself. Now usually in the stages of grief, regression is not the best thing that can happen to you. It's not something completely terrible, and it happens with a lot of people dealing with trauma. They can regress from depression to back to, to bargaining or something like this. But what's interesting about this TV show is that it shows us the regression from a positive side, because yeah, Mark can really go ahead and start bargaining because now he can actually do something to save his wife, which he already mourned, but he never accepted this. Okay, he was always in the stage of depression, and this is where the whole severance process came in.
All I know is she's essential.
Now, Reghabi confirms also that Gemma is essential. She is connected to the most important MDR file, the Cold Harbor, and hopefully soon we will know what the hell is even that. I have a video explaining all the files, so you can check that out if you want. By the way, since we talk here about mirror neurons, the mirrors are very important in the underlying message of this TV show. A lot of shots using the mirrors, and Lumon interiors are also full with mirrors. And also I'm gonna have to say mirrors again because we have the distorted mirrors both in the new intro and in the stop motion cartoon from episode 1. And since we are moving to the next scene of the episode, it also starts from the mirror here with Dylan, Helly and Mark. Also, did you notice that Dylan kinda left Irving in the wind? Even though he has a lot of big talk in previous episode, he was like asking for forgiveness, he was saying that he should have listened and he feels guilty, and still, like, even though Irving kinda inherited to him the whole process of finding the black hole, Dylan doesn't really want to lose his privilege of hugging his wife. I mean, he obviously never experienced anything intimate, and obviously I can understand and relate, but also...
Sorry! I should have listened!
Yet it's episode 6 and you still don't listen, my man.
Okay, I don't want to get in trouble right now.
Bros before you're out his wife, man. Bros before you're out his wife.
You said it's behind the poster of you actually being brave?
Emotional damage!
In this scene, when Mark is going through his reintegration process, we are seeing that in the refrigerator there is this fake beer called Split Lock. Once again, this is just a small wink to the main theme of the show, of the whole split personality. And by the way, I never seen anyone mention this, that we know that there is severance in our life. There are people that have different personalities. It's obviously a very disturbing psychological trauma, but it happens. So it kind of makes sense that a company like Lumon can recreate this trauma. This is usually a response to something very traumatic that happened to you in the childhood. I'm not gonna say explicitly what because I don't want to be demonetized, but you understand exactly what happened. So somebody like Lumon, which obviously stays on a very gray, I would say even black moral area, it's not far-fetched to think that through the severance process they somehow recreated this trauma and maybe made it, artificial, and this is how they create those two split personalities. Just something for you to think about. Also, we can see that in the fridge there are two packed lunches, one for Dylan G and the other for Mark S. We heard in the podcast by Dan Erickson that the lunch is packed for Ines according to Auri's request. So it looked like Helena is trying to starve Helly R, or at least she wants to deprive her of the whole beauty and the amazing feeling of eating some good food. Now let's watch the whole reintegration scene in a very slow motion. The only thing that changes is the Helly outside and the inside. Granted, it can be just a different angle, but with current technologies of filming, it's not that complicated to put the same Helly asking "Are you okay?" in two different places. So my question to you is, what do you think about this moment? Is it something there, or is it just me trying to find a meaning when there is none? Now in Milchik's scene, and obviously in his office, there is this statue of either a rabbit or a duck. Now I've noticed this before obviously, but I didn't give that too much of a meaning before, but right now I'm actually going through my I don't know how many times rerun of How I Met Your Mother, and you remember this scene, right?
It's a rabbit. It's a rabbit. But then one day, look at it and you realize, wait a second, it's a
duck, rabbit, duck, rabbit, duck.
So in my opinion, this rabbit or the duck implies to us as a fandom still not understanding what side is Milchik on. Is he an ally, someone we can relate to, or he is actually an enemy, someone to be feared? So is he a rabbit or a duck?
Rabbit, duck, rabbit, duck.
Now, I really enjoyed how Milchik reminded Miss Huang that her fate depends on him. This is basically him flexing his muscles and putting her back on her place. And it's needed, you don't rat on your boss. Especially if your boss is freaking Mr. Milchik.
Well, I have deemed you wintertide material.
Now, he's also mentioned something that's called wintertide material, which probably implies, according to the context, to some sort of Lumen educational institution. We know that there is the Myrtle Egan School for girls, but there's probably some kind of a higher education there too, right? It's supposed to be. If you want to foster the new generation of Lumen Kier crazies, you need to take all the steps. Well, that was a beatdown. Milchik is a master of crashing someone's spirit without basically saying anything bad to them.
Thank you, Mr. Milchik.
I'm sorry everybody, I have a revelation. I think I can see the future. I see in our future that all of our fandom, all of the Severance fandom, we're gonna stop using the word fuck. We're just gonna tell to everybody who we dislike that they can go and share the vessels with themselves.
Helly, we shared vessels.
You heard about Dieter Egan? Like, this dude went to the forest, he shared the vessel with himself, and then his hands got really hairy, and then he died.
As he spilt his lineage upon the soil.
And right now I just want to talk about Helly R and her understanding, discovering that Mark S had sex with Helena. Basically, Helena stole her body and, you know, like, she shared the vessel with somebody Helly R really likes and has feelings for. Now, if until this moment I had a small crush on Helly R, after this episode you can sign me for the fan club. She is one of the greatest characters we have ever seen. I mean, the strength, the mental strength of going to yourself, going to this fetal position, being completely by yourself without everybody, feeling alone, feeling helpless, and then taking control. This whole scene for me was her taking control of her life and basically saying, like, you can do things to me, but there's something you cannot do, and some things I decide what's gonna happen. And if she stole that for me, I want this moment for myself, and I'm gonna be the one to choose how it's gonna happen and with whom it's gonna happen and when it's gonna happen. And it's giving me chills as I'm speaking about this moment. This is the best scene of this episode for me, and usually I'm the last guy that enjoys romantic scenes in quotation marks in movies and TV shows. I think I say this a couple of times. My favorite movie ever is Lord of the Rings. There is nothing bad about this movie. I can watch it hundreds, thousands of times, but every time there is a Arwen Aragorn scene when they're like in love with each other, I'm like, kill me now. And also, if you compare this scene that happened in this episode, you know, the romantic scene, you compare it to episode 4 with the red colors and the lust, and it reminds me those 90s action movies. Like, when I was a kid, my dad would watch this movie with Van Damme or something like this, and then there is the sex scene, and my dad would put his hand on my eyes because I was like 6 or 7, whatever. But even then, I kind of thought to myself, those scenes are freaking stupid. And also, you can make fun of me when I grew up and, you know, like, started dating. I actually thought that most of the women kind of like that, you know, the smooth jazz, the slow motion moves, the whatever happens there with the candles, and kind of pretty fast understood. Thankfully, you know, the girls that were with me, the women that were with me, helped me understand what kind of actually works better. So yeah, those scenes make me feel stupid. I don't like them. I even kind of hate them. But this moment felt so natural, felt so real, like the way they were nervous a little bit, like giggling. It kind of reminded me of, once again, myself in when it first happened to me. And I'm pretty sure that for a lot of you, it was pretty similar, this, you know, this first experience. Even though that both Helly R and Mark S, obviously not virgins, yeah, but in their innie state, Helly R never really had that intimate moment, and For her, it's the first time. For Mark, it's the first time when he's actually with someone he cares about, when it's real and not something fabricated. This moment was so real, so emotional. Like, this is one of the rare moments that for me, a guy who really doesn't give a crap about those kind of scenes, it felt so amazing, so real. And as you can see, I cannot shut myself up. You know, I can see on you that you want me to move on, but I just have to share this fan feeling, this excitement of how fucking Sharon Vessel amazing this show is, and how lucky we are to have someone so talented. This whole cast, the directors, the writers, the actors, everything is so freaking amazing, and I'm so happy. So, did you notice that this is the same place when their relationship kind of started? Until this moment they were always having only work relationship, and then they became friends when Mark confined her in the secret of Petey's map. This is the place where everything hidden happens, and I think this is kind of nice to see this circle of events. Now let's move on to Dylan G and his wife, who is named probably Pam Beasley.
Corporate needs you to find the differences between this picture and this picture. They're the same picture.
This moment was also kind of sweet, even though we are actually seeing how she is cheating on her Audi's husband. Like, I don't know how to call him. Audi husband, Ini husband. Yeah, she's obviously very charmed by, you know, once again, the boyish energy of Dylan, his alpha presence, how genuine he is, how excited he is about seeing her again. Of course, it works on her, and she obviously likes him. And after that, in the scene, when she kind of hides the truth, we can understand that she feels really guilty about it.
It's just so great seeing Dylan so happy and talking about his feelings and experiencing them, for experiencing love for the first time. But also Merritt is so wonderful. And like when they go in for the hug, he once asks for a hug, and you see her kind of take this moment right before their hug where she's going through her own experience of this is so weird but so sweet, and getting to sort of start over with her husband and still having these feelings. There's so much going on here. It's just kind of fascinating to watch.
Yeah, well, the whole episode is very much about the relationship between Gretchen and Dylan, Mark and Helly, Burt and Irving. I think if there was a theme for this episode, it would be people connecting.
I even remember at one of my live streams, we did a poll, and most of you kind of voted that this is obviously cheating, and she probably agrees with you. But once again, for me, the most important moment of this scene is this distinction between Inis and Auris becomes even stronger and stronger.
I wish we could really be together all the time.
I mean, we are.
You and him are, but I'm not.
Like when Dylan is saying to her, listen, I know that you are with him, but you're not with me. She's trying to combine them together, like for her, in her psychology, in her state of mind. This is something that's gonna be easier to accept, because if this is the same person, you're not cheating. And Dylan G is basically saying to her, nah, we are not the same characters from episode 1, season 1, when we were less of personalities. We had less I, we had less independence as somebody who is a person. And after the whole process of I don't know how many episodes already, like I think 15, this is where we are right now. And this is like a little bit reminding me of the whole teenagers process, like when they start to rebel, when they want to feel independent, because this is how their brain tries to create, you know, their identity. They want to be something by themselves. They want to be a little bit separated from the parents. They want to be their own person. And this is what happens with our Inis. They want to be their own people. And I welcome that. And it's so interesting to see. So yeah, let's move to the details. This is what you came for to this video, even though some of you enjoy me geeking out about my favorite TV show. So let's talk about Milchik here practicing his paper clips magic. This document is called the General Announcement from the Desk of Mr. Milchik. Whatever this means, maybe this is something that we're gonna discover in the next episode. And this kind of repetition is not new. We have seen it already with Miss Colbell in previous season.
Wit, cheer, humility, benevolence, nimbleness, probity, wiles.
Again, please. Now.
Actually, repetition works very well as a brainwashing technique. This is something that is being used in a lot of cults, in a lot of dogmatic communities, when you are forced to repeat the same thing over and over again, because our brain is a creature that likes the easiest path. There is something that's called cognitive ease. Basically, we want to think less. We don't want to have the difficult task of solving problems and solving riddles. This is why Jingle works, because, you know, when it crimes, it's more simple. This is why all the politicians always have a very simple slogan like vote for me, get money, or some shit like this. Because if it's gonna be complicated, then the cognitive ease is not gonna be there, and we want to have our cognitive ease in our life. And this is where repetition works, and we are seeing this pattern both in Milchik and in Miss Selvig and in the break room. This is how they create new people. Because if you repeat something for 100 or even thousands of times, at some point, no matter how progressive you are, no matter how smart you are, at some point you will start to believe it. Your brain will adapt to it. This is the only way to actually survive this kind of repetition. So yeah, this is an interesting moment, and it's kind of expands our whole understanding of Lumon and its practices.
Grow up. Grow up.
And also, like, where is Tremel Tillman's Emmy? Can we skip the whole waiting period and give him the statue already? I mean, like, this scene when he was repeating grow up and he was getting rid of the big words, becoming, more mature, and he started to grow as he became even more and more testosteronious. I promise you, there is a word like that. Don't check me on that, though. Yeah, it scene blew my mind because he was, first of all, repeating the words that he said to Miss Huang. Simultaneously, those words apply to him. We can see when he looks at a mirror, it basically affects him. He considers his love to those big words as something childish, as something frolic, and he needs to tame this, as Kier Egan does. So he's practicing those words to fix himself and simultaneously fix Miss Huang, because of whom he actually has to go through this process, and once again he's maturing, in very big quotation marks here, through this process. The complexity of human nature in this scene blew my mind away. Where's the Emmy? Come on, come on, come on. Where is the Emmy for this guy? I don't know who else deserves this right now. Anybody? You have ideas?
Oh no, you're bleeding.
Oh, you are.
And Mark is bleeding, of course, and I told you he would be bleeding, right? In the previous review, I told you, even though I told you it's gonna be from the mouth when he's gonna be coughing blood, but now he has nose bleeding, because once again you need to show the progress of trauma, which is physical apparently, from the reintegration, and at some point, in order to show the audience that it's gonna be bad, you gonna add some blood. So in this scene we can actually see that Miss Huang mentions that humidity levels in severed floor are kept on 45%, which is interesting, since if humidity drops too low, below 30%, the air becomes too dry, and it's gonna lead to dry skin, throat irritation, and eye discomfort. Now if humidity is too high, above 60%, it can cause stuffy air and make people feel sluggish or uncomfortable. Now actually, as usual, research, and obviously Lumon uses a lot of researchers, suggest that the 40 to 50% humidity is ideal for keeping employees comfortable, reducing distractions caused by environmental discomfort. Now, this scene is actually a direct throwback to the very first episode, and it kind of makes us think of the journey that Mark and Helly went through together and how their relationship developed. This moment is ridiculous to me. It's so funny. I mean, only somebody like Miss Huang wouldn't notice that Helly R hair is screaming that she was sharing some vessels about 5 minutes ago. I'm just, this shot is lovely. I mean, 5 stars. So when Mark wakes up and we have a very confusing scene where memories interlap and the viewer can't really understand which one of the memories comes first, the chicken or the egg. It looks like he is in his basement talking to Reghabi, but somehow Miss Huang reacts to what he's saying to Reghabi. I don't know if it's involved with some sort of time distortion theories, and there are some very interesting ones obviously, or it's just because they want to show how confused Mark is right now. Time perception is also obviously connected to the way our brain works, and if it's vessel shared up, it's a great recipe to find yourself in a certain institution. What I think is actually happening is, just as I told you, our brain looks always for the easiest path, and when you have two different personalities in one person and they start to combine together, probably Mark's brain is looking for very similar memories, just like puzzle pieces when they connect. So when he's remembering making love to his wife Gemma and to Helena and to Helly R, those memories interlap because they are similar. They have something, that connects them. And the same way in this conversation, he probably was having some visions in the severed floor and it made him confused. And right now he's having some visions next to Reghabi and he's confused. And this is why those those two memories kinda interlap, because once again he was asking the same question, both in the severed floor and in the room with Reghabi. I don't know if it makes any sense to you, but anyway, I am kinda worried for Mark. I know he probably has a plot armor, but still, I hope he's gonna be okay. So we have Irving coming to meet Burt and scratching the price from the bottle. It kinda really bugged me. I mean, the money you spend is not your worth, and if somebody makes you feel less because of how much you spend on them, you can tell them go vessel themselves. Look, if I give a present, I always scratch the price, cause it's just polite, and I think most of you will do the same. Doesn't really matter if the present is expensive or cheap. But since the camera focused on that and made it important, I think it's probably something that they wanted to show us and connect to the scene from the previous episode.
We like red wine, expensive.
And you can clearly see that there is a huge level of income between Burt and Irving. I mean, look at that painting of Agnello Clown by von Robert Springfields from 1949. It cost just $11,000.
What your innie ever saw in this Philistine.
So Philistine is actually describes someone who is indifferent or hostile to art, culture and intellectual pursuits. This term was later popularized in English by writer Matthew Arnold in the 19th century to criticize the middle class materialistic values. So Burt doesn't really like art and he's kind of a scoundrel, and there is also something very fishy about this couple. So we know that Burt have sinned and he's going to hell, and Fields apparently some kind of a saint who is definitely gonna go to heaven. Yeah, right. So they mention Attila the Hun. They used to call each other Hun and then they changed it to Attila.
Attila? Yes, Attila.
It gives me the vibe of a dead joke, you know, it's very intellectual, has a little bit of a hint of a snobbish, intellectual kind of people, reminds me a little bit about Patton and Rebecca, but still, way better. So Attila the Hun earned the name Scourge of God due to the widespread devastation he inflicted upon the Roman Empire during his reign. His relentless campaign led to the sacking and destruction of numerous Roman cities, instilling profound fear across the empire. Romans thought that Attila the Hun is a divine punishment for their moral and societal transgression, and they named Attila the Scourge of God, viewing him as an instrument of divine retribution. Now, this perception was further reinforced by Attila's own beliefs. He reportedly wielded a weapon known as the Sword of Mars, or Sword of God, which he believed conferred upon him a divine mandate to conquer and subjugate. This conviction in his divine mission amplified the terror he inspired among his adversaries. So there is sort of a connection. We kind of saw, you know, Burt and Fields being a little bit, I think in my opinion, too much into, you know, religion interpretation. They were saying they are not zealots, but they were kind of behaving like one. I mean, you know, like thinking that your inner soul is the one that's gonna go to heaven with you. It felt really selfish. I don't know why, if I'm the only one who felt it like this, please let me know in the comments. But it felt like if I'm gonna say to my spouse, yeah, you know what I'm gonna do in heaven without you, let's make a different personality that I don't know about and doesn't know about me, and this one is gonna go with me to heaven, and you go rot in hell. Doesn't really sound like love to me, you know what I'm saying? But the most interesting part of the conversation is Fields' slip about them sitting with the Lumon partner 20 years ago. Like, the official story is that the first severed offices were opened only 12 years ago. And the look that Burt gives Fields here is the, you know, you're sleeping on the couch today look.
Do you remember when I brought home the first chip to show you? I remember you said to me, "It's so pretty, Daddy. Everybody in the whole world should get one."
So Brit Lower is 39 and she remembers seeing the first chip when she was a kid. So yeah, the first severed person was definitely more than 12 years ago. It's logical there were some issues and tests, and looks like Burt is one of the first test subject, or he's actually one of the Lumon's management, since he was talking to a partner there. So we go to the scene with Gretchen and she decides that she's gonna choose the worst lie possible, and when I say the worst course, I mean, the easiest to check if it's true or not. She could have just say like, yeah, the conversation was pretty nice, he looks like a nice guy, and I'm so happy that you're happy, my dear husband. But no, she decides to say that she didn't even attend because it was cancelled. So I kind of imagine already that in the next episode, you know, Mr. Milchik is gonna give Dylan's Audi a call and he's gonna ask him, is your wife happy with all of the meetings? The last one was just yesterday, or some shit like this. Maybe it's not gonna happen, but you know, if it is, it's gonna be expected. But here we can see that she has some kind of a reward, some kind of a board here, and it's written that she is a dispatcher of the month. In my review of episode 3, I noticed that she was wearing something as a medical expert would wear, somebody who is maybe working in emergency, and this is why she's doing a lot of night shifts. And you were writing to me, no, how you couldn't notice, she's obviously some kind of a guard, or maybe a police, or maybe something like this. Shame on you. I'm kidding, of course. Let's all be friends. I really like the whole conversation between Helena and Mark. Obviously, the 2 fortune cookies, once again, a small wink to the main theme of this TV show, splitting personalities, 2 people live in one body. So basically, if he receives 2 fortune cookies, it's because there is 2 people there. But then there's the conversation with Helena, and I think it was very interesting. First of all, because it was very flirtatious from both sides. Even though that Mark was kind of nervous, he still was a little bit flirting with her, like, yeah, well, you want to go and take me to your dad already? We already there? So yeah, they were both flirting here, but for me the most interesting moment is when Helena is actually saying that this will be the first.
You should meet him sometime.
You want to take me home to dad already?
He'd be the first.
So it kind of once again confirms that she has no love in her life. And even in episode 4, we have seen lust. We didn't see love there. What we've seen between Helly R and Mark in this episode, this was love. And I kind of even felt a little bit bad for her. I mean, this is a pretty sad life. Being like she's obviously not in her 20s. It's not like she's not 18, and being at this point of life and never experiencing a true intimacy with a person, this is freaking sad. And when Mark leaves, we can see that this restaurant, which is a real restaurant in real life with a real name, was named for this show as Zufu. We can see that this is Chinese kitchen, this is Chinese food, and Zufu in Chinese is grandfather. But we can see that Zu there is kind of not working, and we can see only the Fu. So it means father. And God, please, 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 don't let this show to turn into telenovela. I cannot really see this. I don't want to see Helena and Helly R fighting each other, and then Marcardo there between them is saying, no, it's your baby, no, it's my baby, come on, no, I'm gonna hate you forever, oh my God, I lost my memory, I don't know who you are. Please don't let Severance turn into this. If there's gonna be a baby, you know, we're gonna have to accept this, but hopefully it's gonna be made in a very tasteful manner, and still the focus is gonna be on Mark's S drama, on Helly R journey, and on the whole Severance process. We can see that Drummond has keys probably from every house in Lumon housing. We have seen already this with Miss Selvig. Probably everybody in Lumon's management have some kind of access, and because Lumon is all about control, it's not really surprising. And obviously they also, since they're all about control, have some kind of a GPS tracker in everybody who is severed. This is how they know that Irving is not home, and this is how they know how to find everybody. Now regarding the documents, we can see that there are a lot of names here, and Irving was really interested in their education, where they live, and what kind of education they have. We have, for example, this person named Bersamin Trisha, or Basement Andrew, that was severed in 2008, and if this is 2020 like it suggested it is, then this is one of the first people officially to be severed. And there's also the Coleman. Doug Coleman, we know that there is a file, MDR file, that it's called like that, and as we can see, once again, car crash. The Lexington letter, Gemma, once again car crash here. It's a very common death case in places where Lumon has its operations. Now Mark is coming back home, he thinks that Lumon is onto him, he thinks that Helena knows everything, he needs to speed up the process, and he gives the green light to Reghabi to go ahead and dig something in his brain through a very creepy hole. I mean, this scene, don't watch it before you eat, right? But once again, when Mark starts reintegrating and the chip is probably filled with some kind of a liquid stops working, we are seeing a very fast glimpse of Gemma there first time dressed up as, you know, like a normal person, not Miss Casey, like somebody that Mark would probably remember. And we also see a couple of moments of probably them being intimate already on the outside, which is a bit weird for me because those memories supposed to be accessible for Audi Mark, and he doesn't really need a help of reintegration to get to those memories. So what the hell is with that? And by the way, of course, the purple color is the mix between the red and the blue, and we have seen both Gretchen and Gemma wearing the purple shirts, kind of similar shirts. I don't know exactly what it means, but if you have any idea, please let me know in the comments. And of course, we are finishing this episode with Burt giving a very sinister look to Irving, probably because he was thinking that he's Bugs Bunny in this situation. If you didn't listen to the podcast, go ahead and listen. Then you will understand the joke. But still, this and obviously the sleep about the 20 years ago kind of makes me think that Burt is maybe not that innocent as any Burt, and maybe has some kind of a sinister or maybe even evil plan towards our darling Irving, and I really hope that everything's gonna be okay with Irving because he's freaking awesome. Anyway, you are awesome too. Thank you so much for supporting this channel. I want to thank everybody who supports me on Patreon. We have 7 new motivators on YouTube. We have the Witches Brew with Dana Marie, who basically added 5 new motivators. We have the Ebony Stalis, we have the Populbla, we have the Hill at Lecture, and we have Erica Medja, and of course we have a new motivator, Delcinia Dames Tucker. Thank you so much for supporting this channel. Thank you so much for watching this video until this moment. I appreciate it a lot. This is the biggest support I can ask for you. Just watch my videos and enjoy. And if you don't enjoy, let me know how can I improve. Usually I don't ask for you to share and like and so on. This time I'm gonna do this because I know that my videos are good, and when I like release them, they blow up and I get like a lot of views in the first couple of hours, and as soon as I hit like 20k or 25k views, something stops, like there is some kind of a glass ceiling there, and I don't know if it's only because I have 20,000 people that can enjoy my videos or it's because something else. So if you can share, send it to a friend or something like this, it will help. If not, it's also okay. Don't trouble yourself too much. Anyway, thank you so much, and I hope I'm gonna see you on my next video. Meanwhile, bye!